Hello, everyone, and welcome to our leak repair channel, where we bring engineering insight to the world of industrial leak repair. I'm Tim Gaida, a professional engineer at My Engineering Ltd. Today's topic is discussing one of the hidden risks in leak repair, when injectable sealant makes its way into the product stream. This is called mainlining. When you inject sealant into an enclosure, it's meant to stay in the void around the pipe and not enter the pipe itself. But if there's an active leak and that leak isn't stopped before injection, the sealant can be forced directly into the line. This can cause serious problems. Imagine that you have a strainer or filter in the system downstream of the leak. If sealant enters the product flow, it can clog those components, leading to unplanned outages, costly service disruptions, and even damage to downstream equipment. So how is this prevented? If you're using a void fill style enclosure, the leak must be stopped or minimized prior to injecting. A common way of doing this in the industry is to use a simple rubber patch and some hose clamps. Some people call this a stopgap. When installed, the patch covers the hole or crack in the pipe and prevents sealant from entering into the service stream. If you're using a patch, make sure that it is installed before taking measurements or a 3D scan. That way, the enclosure can be designed to fit over top of the patch. Also, note that most of these styles of patches rely on elastomeric seals, which don't hold up well at high temperatures. This method is normally limited to a pipe surface temperature of 150 C or 300 Fahrenheit, unless you're using a special rubber compound. There may also be chemical limitations with using an elastomeric patch. If you can't stop the leak before installing the enclosure, then another option to avoid mainlining is to use a perimeter seal style enclosure. These are specifically designed to seal around the outside of the leak and prevent injection into the pipe. A normal design for a perimeter seal enclosure would be to utilize an inner rope packing, a center injection groove, and an outer rope packing seal. The rope packing is less of a seal and more of a barrier, which acts to contain the sealant and prevent it from entering into the enclosure cavity, which could lead to mainlining. Now, procedurally, there are some safeguards that are employed to avoid mainlining. When it comes time to inject sealant, technicians must use the calculated volume provided by engineering. That volume is based on the internal void space between the enclosure and the pipe. If the technicians inject the calculated amount and the enclosure isn't full, they must stop injecting. Continuing could mean sealant is now entering the main line. At this point, the technicians must double check to make sure that their sealant volumes were correct, and then discuss a path forward with engineering and the client. Because there will always be some margin of error built into the void volume calculations, as measurements are never perfect, and the machining of the enclosure has some intrinsic error, it is common that slightly more sealant than calculated will be injected into the cavity. A safe bet would be to allow for about a 10% error on the calculated values that are provided. If there's more sealant needed than that 10% error, again, make sure that you check with engineering and the client before continuing to inject. Now, mainlining has a low likelihood of happening and causing damage, but the consequences are very high if it does happen. It can be prevented by using the right enclosure style, stopping the leak first when needed, and always following the calculated injection volumes. That's how we protect the piping system and the entire facility from this type of damage. Thanks for joining me for today's discussion. If you'd like to learn more about topics like this, please subscribe to our channel or join our mailing list. We'll send you more great information as it's released. You'll find the mailing list link in the description below. Thanks again for watching.